all our subscribers, everybody to join the live. Just wanted to talk about something very important. Is there really a God? Is there a God? Because people just naturally, believe that there's a God somewhere. And I think it's basically based on the fact that we're born into these conventions, into these belief systems. Because immediately you're born, especially if you reside in the West, if you reside in Africa, especially, immediately you're born, you're growing in a family, everybody just grow into it and believe there's a God because of a lot of things that happen around us that we've not been able to explain or been able to understand. We've not understood a whole lot of things. We've not found explanation, for a whole lot of things. Welcome to the life. Back in those days, our forefathers saw a lot of things they could not explain, like volcanoes. You talk about earthquakes. You talk about natural disasters, diseases. Like malaria that have no cure, fevers, a whole lot of diseases, leprosy, and all that. So they believe there must have been a divine cause, like a cause that is beyond, humans, for all these diseases and all these things. That's they just believed it because they couldn't explain it. But today, science has helped us to understand the remote causes of diseases, of earthquakes, of a whole lot of things that happen around us. We now understand why they happen, how they happen, a lot of things we didn't understand before. Cures have been found for diseases that were thought to have been caused by some unknown or unseen forces or powers that are called, gods and all that. So every tribe had their own gods that they believed were responsible for instance, farming. When famine comes, they believe that maybe the gods are angry and all that. But today we know that a whole lot of things that were believed to be caused by, gods, they're not true. There are no really any gods that are causing any of the things that were believed to be caused by any god. So the question is there a God? Is there a God somewhere? So to answer that question, we have to look at it very, critically. Um, the angle I'm looking at it from is the gods of history, whatever has been known as God so far in human history. For instance, in this world right now, especially in the West and in Africa, what we know as God is traceable to two basic religions. One, Christianity, and then two, Islam. So, one, you talk about Yahweh, and then you talk about Jesus Christ, that have been assumed or be seen to be one God, and then you talk about the Muslim God, which is Allah. Allah, that is the Muslim God. So, okay, Marius, hello, brother. Jesus bless you. No, okay. See, when we talk about God, we're talking about these two entities. You talk about Yahweh and you talk about Allah and talk about Jesus Christ, which is linked with Yahweh. The problem here is that a whole lot of people don't understand that what they know as God, you know, is not what they've been told it is. See that? What they know as God is not what they've been told or they've been taught or they've come to believe it is. Now, if you look at it critically, you study this God Yahweh, you discover that this God Yahweh is not different from the deities that we have in our villages, in our towns, these deities we have in our towns. And if you look at it, you see that Yahweh is not different from other, deities that were worshipped before even Yahweh. You talk about Zeus, you talk about Mithras, you talk about other, gods that were worshipped before Yahweh. So the God, none of the gods of history can be a supernatural being, if there is any supernatural being actually overseeing the universe, it cannot be Yahweh. Because if you check the history of Yahweh, Yahweh is a volcanic deity that was worshipped by the Jewish people. And from history, we found out that it's not the Jewish people that were the first to start worshiping Yahweh. They actually copied it from other tribes that were worshiping that same storm deity or a volcanic deity called Yahweh. You see all of these things in the Bible. You see where we are told that Moses had an encounter with this God on the mountain. The children of Israel were at the foot of the mountain. The mountain was smoking and shaking, everywhere was vibrating. That is to tell you what they were actually worshiping was a volcano, because in those days they didn't understand why there were volcanic eruptions all around them and all that. They didn't understand all of these things. You see that, but today we understand the reason why volcanoes happen. If you study geography, you understand why volcanoes happen and all that. But they didn't understand all these things. They thought it was a god that was shaking the earth, that was angry, that was doing all of those things. That was what they thought in those days. Okay, so today we understand these things, and now we know that Yahweh was actually an idol that was created by man, to be worshipped as a god, as a supernatural deity. So there was nothing actually supernatural about Yahweh. It was just natural occurrences that these people did not understand, that they attributed to an unknown deity. They attributed it, they created a name for those circumstances or situations and named it Yahweh and all that. They worshipped it. So Yahweh is not God. Marius, where I'm from? Okay, I'm from Nigeria. All right, I'm from Nigeria, and I'm an irreligious person. So, where are you from? Where are you from, please? Welcome to the life. So, I'm talking about the fact. I think I remember. I think Nigeria once played against Romania, in football. All right. To continue, I was talking about the fact that what Christians worship as Yahweh is actually a tribal deity. It's a tribal deity that Christians worship as God. And when you talk about the Yahweh, you talk about volcano, volcanic eruption, because from the Bible you see where we are told that Moses and the children of Israel are at the foot of the mountain, where the mountain was erupting, and then they said God was thundering and all that. So they believed that they were worshiping a god, but actually, in actual sense, they weren't worshiping any god. All right, because today science has made us to understand that the cause of volcanoes is not supernatural. All right, there's no supernatural cause of volcanoes. And leprosy, look at the Bible, you see a lot of diseases like leprosy were attributed to Yahweh. That was the cause of it. He punished people with sicknesses and diseases. Why these things happen, and all these things happen to both good and bad people. All right, so there's no God that is actually orchestrating these things, because what we're answering is there a God? There a God somewhere? So if at all there is any God anywhere, it can't be any of the gods of history, because Yahweh is not different from Zeus or any Mithras or any of the gods of history that you can. Allah, Allah is not different from the Yahweh and every other God also, because this God originates from Saudi Arabia. The deities that originated from Saudi Arabia. So looking at all these gods and the attributes, the things attributed to them, you discover that it was primitive people who did not understand nature, who did not understand how the world works, how the earth works. They don't understand these things. These are the people that attributed all this to God. And how did they know that, okay, there's a God somewhere? Maybe somebody had a dream or had a vision or claims that he heard a voice. speaking to him or her or whatever thing. And all of us have these experiences, right? You dream, you watching me or watching this live session, you dream dreams. You have visions also, you dream. So all of these things are not enough to show that there's a God somewhere. If there was a God anywhere, that God would have showed up millions of years ago or thousands of years ago. That God would have showed up to tell us, here I am. But we are told that he sent his son and all that. These are stories, that were told by ancient people who did not understand how the world functions and how nature functions. They felt there was a God up there in the sky. But scientists have gone to the sky. There is even an international space station up there in the sky. There's no God there. You see that? And then they continue, religious people continued and said, oh, that God lives in your heart. How does he live in your heart? Through his word, through instructions and all that. We know that animals, have cognitive abilities also, like we have. So which God puts those things in their minds and all that? You see that? So looking at Yahweh, looking at Jesus Christ, looking at Allah, you discover that there's actually no God anywhere, because all of these are deities that are similar to the ones we have in our villages that originated with our cultures, because every culture has a God attached to it, has a figure, a supernatural figure, an illusory supernatural figure that is attached to every known deity, or every deity worshipped by anybody or any tribe. There are cultures that are attached to them, like the Jewish culture evolved with the worship of Yahweh. The Arabian culture evolved with the worship of Allah. And then you see the Greek culture evolved with the worship of Zeus and other gods. The Roman culture evolved with the worship of their gods, Romulus and all that. You see that? So every tribe had their own gods and all that. But the issue is when people began to migrate and began to mingle, and they fight for resources, for lands and all that started. Those who had upper hand over the others forced the other people, the people who were conquered or who are conquered, they are forced, to worship the gods of those who conquered them. Used it to dominate the world. They conquered the world and forced those who they conquered to worship this thing into this, where it came from. They just believe whatever their parents taught them or whatever they are taught to believe. Some of us believed in these gods until we grew to a point where we began to question these things and have our own knowledge, have our own understanding. All right. At this juncture, you can support this channel by sending us super chats. You can send us super chats. You can send us super stickers. All right, to help us to bring you more. There's more that is going to be coming your way as we grind on. This is Africa Enlightenment Center. Here we're trying to bring to you enlightenment, political, social, and religious enlightenment, to help people understand what is going on right now in the world, especially when it comes to religion, to make people know that religion has not actually helped the society, to prove it, to show practical proofs and evidences, practical evidences and reason to help people understand that we human beings, we have the capacity, to make the world a better place. We don't have to rely on any supernatural being to come and help us. We have to rely on ourselves and be able to do things the right way that can make everybody have a sense of belonging, and resources are shared amicably to make the world a better place. You can support this channel by sending us super thanks, by sending us super stickers, and also comment where you are watching from. And if you have any objections to what I'm saying, or you challenge what I'm saying, you can drop your comments and I'll read it and reply you appropriately. So I'm talking about the fact that is there a God anywhere? And I'm saying that nature really shows us that there is no God anywhere. If you argue this, when you say God, what do you mean the word God? All right, the word God comes from the word earth. Okay, which originated from the area called Old Mesopotamia. And that word El is actually plural. It has to do with gods, but the Jewish people narrowed it down and made it to be singular, because they wanted to make sure that their God is the only God that is worshipped by their own people. The Israelites had multiple gods, which included Asherah and other gods, Baal and all that. And so the Yahweh, that is the worshippers of Yahweh, eliminated all other worshippers. You can see that even in the Bible, the battles are claimed that are attributed to Elijah, where he destroyed the prophets of Baal and all that. So you could see the competition for these different deities worshipped by the Israelites, competition for which one would be acceptable amongst the generality of the people. So the Yahwehs gained upper hand, and they established the worship of Yahweh above every other one, and that was how Yahweh came to stay. When the Romans conquered the Jewish people, it was the Greek first. That's why because the Greek language was like the universally accepted language as at the time the Romans came on board. That's why you see that most of the New Testament scriptures were written in the Greek language, not the Roman language. So the Romans conquered the Jews after the Greek, influenced them with their culture, which is called the Hellenistic period. The Romans conquered them, and they couldn't actually destroy the Yahwehnic movement in a way. So how will they do that? They had to create a counter religion, out of Judaism, from their own, pagan gods and all that, and Judaistic messianic prophecies, like even the Bible. There is a portion of the Bible that says Paul was talking to, I think, the Ephesians, and say, "Oh, you're worshiping an unknown God. Yahweh is the unknown God you've been worshiping." That kind of a thing. That was what the Romans did. They created a God out of what the Jews were worshiping and what the Romans were worshiping. They put everything together. When you talk about the Son of God, you're not talking about an entity, a being. You are actually talking about the Son, because majority of these people, they were Son worshippers. Across all religions, you can see the Stonehenge and evidences, physical evidences of the worship of the Son across all peoples and languages and tongues around the world, including Africa and all that. So most of the gods are named after the sun and the moon and the stars and all that. So they were actually worshiping the constellation, because they didn't know what they were. They felt they were gods. When they move around, when there's kind of eclipses and all that, interactions between the interstellar bodies and all that, they were watching these things. They felt that the gods were fighting, or the gods were, doing something and all that. So these things, that was how these gods originated, till they began to create institutions around the beliefs that they've attributed to all of these gods. So you see, if you study history very well, you actually see that there is no particular God anywhere. It is the assumptions of men based on their experiences, what they experience. For instance, dreams, visions. Okay, now look at the New Testament and all that in the Bible. How did they know that Jesus is God, or and all that? They said somebody had an encounter, visions, dreams. It's just those things. Those things are natural things that everybody experiences. All of us, you that is listening to this live right now, watching, you experience dreams and visions also. You see things too. So your interpretation of these things, determine how you take them, your understanding and interpretation. So in the primitive years of humanity, they didn't understand the things we understand today. They didn't know that they felt the sun was even a light, all right, hung up in the skies, and the moon was also a light hung up in the skies. That's, you see the creation story in the Bible, where it was written that the moon is one of the lights. But today, through science, we know that the moon is not a light at all, that is hung up there in the skies. You see that? So what you are worshiping, if you're worshiping any god, Yahweh or any of these gods, what you're actually worshiping, okay, is just the assumptions of men. And these assumptions were born out of the lack of understanding of nature, lack of understanding of how nature, interfaces with us, how nature works. Today we understand to a great extent how nature works. So we can basically say that there is no God anywhere, because all of the gods of history, when you talk about Yahweh, you talk about Allah, all of these gods, you discover that they are just the assumptions of men, because in reality they do not exist. It is people or humans that are propagating these gods, claiming these gods exist based on certain factors. For instance, somebody who was sick, they said pray for the person and the person became well, so it was a god that healed the person. But there are actually people who become sick, nobody prayed for them, they become well. So there are a whole lot of things, that are attributed to gods that have been successfully debunked, over the years, that are not attributed to any god. And I dare anybody, if there is any god anywhere, that god should come out and say, yes, this is me, I am God, and all that, not revealing himself through visions and dreams, and then somebody has to come and tell people that, oh, there's a God somewhere, he sent me to come and tell you this and all that. It's all lies, because all of us have those dreams and those visions too, especially it's only those who are not, self-aware, who are not aware of themselves and the abilities that lie within them, that do not have dreams and visions and do not understand that they can dream and have visions also, like every other person that claims to have seen a vision of God. We are told that Islam was revealed through visions also, and all that. So all of us have these visions and dreams, and if everybody attributes his visions and dreams to a God somewhere and all that, then everybody will have his own God, right? You see that? But a majority of humans don't even do research about the things they believe. For me to get to this point, to understand that there is no God anywhere, it had to do with research. I was a pastor for so many years. See that? I was a pastor for more than 15 years or so, about that. And I believed, Jesus was God and all that. See, I started, questioning my experience, the experiences that led me to believe these things. And the things that I was taught that made me to believe that Jesus is God and all that. I started questioning them. I started studying and reading, going through history. And I understood that, oh, no, actually, there is no virgin birth and all that. These are stories that were told from generation to generation, that were written down, and people were made to believe them to be true. So I went beyond belief to knowledge, to begin to understand that these things that we have been told, they are not actually true. They are not how, they were told to us. You see that? So if there is even a God anywhere, that God would have showed up. That God would have come up to clear himself and say, yes, I am God and all that. But there is actually no God anywhere. And I tell people that if you think the world, came to be without a God, the world can also, with a God, as a God created the world, and that same God that created the world, was not created. There's also the possibility that the world or the earth, was not created by anything. It can exist on its own. So if a God can exist on its own, the world can exist on its own without being created. You see that? So one has to begin to question the things that he or she has believed. A lot of people just believe that when they say God, everybody just believes there is a God somewhere, and all that. Everybody must acknowledge it. No. You see that? Because there are a lot of questions that come to play. If there was a God anywhere, this world wouldn't be in this kind of chaos and this kind of mess that we are in at all. There's a so-called God that loves humans so much and all that. He wouldn't even go to the extent of killing himself in the name of trying to redeem the world, turning himself to his own son and killing himself. So these are tales by moonlight. We have these stories of, gods, how they came to redeem humanity and all that in all our cultures. And the one that you believe to be true is either the Jewish one, okay, that originated from the Jewish culture, or the one that originated from the Arabian culture. You have your own cultural stories. You that is watching me, you have your own cultural stories of gods. I think the Chinese, there was one we were taught in primary and secondary school about the Chinese Panku, who used their chisel and hammer to create the world. So that sounds funny because you look at it that, oh, this one, you just dismiss it because the one you have believed has stayed with you for so long. I think they call it cognitive bias or something. So you look at this, oh no, this can be true, this one is true. but you do not even have any concrete evidence for what you have believed. It is because it came through a culture, it was passed down to you, and you had to believe it to be true. But there is no evidence, that this thing is true, that Yahweh is God, or that Jesus Christ is God, or that Allah is God. There is no evidence anywhere. There's no evidence. All right. All of the things that are written in the Bible, Quran, or any holy book about any God that existed, you can test them with reality. You can test them with facts. You can test them, with reason, with common sense, and they will all fail. For instance, the creation stories in all of the holy books, they've been proved to be false through science. We know that the creation story, the earth was not created in 6 days or 6 literal days. It wasn't. This earth has been for billions of years, evolving for billions of years. All right. So that is already dismissed. And when you talk about the things that were created, how man was created, and uh, and the stereotype against women, that women were the cause of the problems of this world because they ate an apple or a fruit that was given by one Satan or something. You can imagine, these are stories. For instance, in my culture, there are stories of how the tortoise, how it got a cracked shell, how it got a cracked shell. It's a funny story. They were told that birds, they were going for a meeting up there in the sky, and tortoise was to follow them. So they donated wings for tortoise to follow them. So when tortoise got there, they were to share food, and they were to take names. And tortoise took the name all of us, all of us. So when they brought the food, they would say, "This is for all of you." And tortoise would say, "That's my name," and they would give all the food to him. So he ate all the food, and the birds were angry, and they said, "We are not going to, help you fly back home." So they took their wings from him, and then he sent one of the birds to go and tell his wife that he was going to be, coming up from the skies. So the wife should carry a soft pillow or a mattress on the ground so that he will fall on it and he will not die. The birds understood. The bird that was sent understood. I went to tell the wife that he should pack broken stones and broken objects and put them there. So when the wife put them there, when tortoise fell, he fell on the stones and broken objects and broke his back, and that was how he got a cracked back. And then we're also told of how we have the tortoise in the water turtle, and then we have the land turtle, or the land tortoise and the water turtle. That it was tortoise, he committed a crime, and then he was put in a boiling water, and he was pretending to be dead. He was pretending that the water wasn't doing him anything, and he told the people that they should throw him into the ocean, or something. So they said, okay, they had to throw him into a well, and they hit him on the edge of the well, and he split into two. Some part jumped into the water, and the other part jumped on land, and that was how you have the water turtle, and then you now have the land turtle, the land tortoise, right? So it's a funny story. It's funny, right? That's because you didn't grow up in that culture and be assimilated. That's why you think, oh, this can be true. It's the same thing. The Bible stories of creation, of somebody saying the sun should stand still. You and I know the sun, it is earth that is revolving around the sun, and not the sun around the earth. You see that? So you can see that these stories are actually false stories. These stories are not true. They are folklores, fairy tales that were told, from generation to generation. Children's stories that were told, like the ones I just told now. All right. So these stories are not true. These are the stories that are attributed to the God, the supposed God that created the universe. So you examine these things, and you know that these things are not true, that we have been deceived, that we have been lied to. So there is no God anywhere. All right. For instance, right now the Pope is very sick. He's in hospital. If there was a God somewhere, he would have healed the Pope. Miracles are advertised and all that. what people call miracle. Maybe in another live video, in another video, we're going to be talking about miracles, whether miracles exist or not. We're going to be talking about miracles. But I think the evidence is what I presented, tonight is enough to help you start thinking, because what we're doing here is to help you start thinking. We're not trying to force any information on you. It's just to prick your mind, to open your mind to start thinking, because when you start thinking, you will find the truth. Even the Bible says that you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. So this is for you to start thinking, to challenge your mind so that you start thinking, because when you start thinking, you will find the truth. When you start using your mind, because religion makes you to stop thinking, to just accept conventions that have been postulated over the years to be true. You just believe, you don't know. You just believe. You see that? But when you open your mind to think, you begin to know things. Things that there were a lot of stories were told when we were young that we found out not to be true. The same way mentally, when you're mentally young, you can just accept anything. You can be an adult, but mentally you are still young. But when you grow up as an adult, you take back your curiosity and you begin to polish it. You begin to explore. You begin to try to understand things, and that was how a lot of discoveries today were made. Things that people said, "Oh, this can't be possible. This is not it," and people said, "No, let's even try it out. Let's try something. Let's check it out." The belief that there was God up there and all that. People say, oh, they wanted to go there and see whether there is a God there. Let's go and meet God. That's why you see that in the Bible, when they were making sacrifices, they had to go to a mountain because they want to be closer to God, because they believed God was up there. You see that? Childish beliefs. They believed that a God was up there. That was why they went to mountains, from mountain to mountain to sacrifice. They had to raise a pillar up because it had to be high enough so that it can reach God. So we understand these things. And then when the Jesus gospel come, they tried, to build it into present knowledge, present understanding. They try to use what they've conjured up before, that they've been using to brainwash people before. They try to reconstruct it into that time, that period. Just like, for instance, right now, some Africans are saying, "Oh, Jesus was black" and all that, and trying to use the false Hamitic narrative to tell Africans that Jesus was an African, so that they can continue to enslave Africans with the Jesus narrative. You see that? So religious people, or religion, is fond of doing that, adapting to present, conventions or present understanding, to try to explain away all of the contradictions, that come with the beliefs that they have postulated over the years and all that. But it is time for humanity to wake up. It is time for especially Africans to wake up to the realization that there is no God anywhere. We are the architect of our own success or our own failures as human beings. All right, it is what we decide to do that we do. All right, it is what we have come to learn, what we've come to understand about ourselves, about the world, about our environment, that we do. All right, so we have to come to that understanding. It is important that there is no God up there anywhere. All right, I think it is time to end this here. Tomorrow I'll be live again, to continue from where we stopped. All right, if you enjoyed this session, you can reach out to us. All right, just reach out to us, drop a comment for us, tell us where you're watching from. Thank you very much for hooking up to this live session tonight. Wish to see you again tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Do share this live so that others can, also benefit from it. If you have questions, you can drop your questions. I will attend to your questions. Even in the next live session, I will attend to any questions that are raised as you watch this live session. Please to remind you, this is the Africa Enlightenment Center. The purpose of this channel is to enlighten people. There are so many videos you can watch about different people, speaking and talking about the things that we want to share with you, so that you can get enlightened and understand that religion and politics They walk hand in hand. And do these two things especially, we have to deal with them so that we can have the ideal society that you and I want. No matter what you believe, there's an ideal society that you want. And we cannot keep on worshiping gods that do not exist and think we're going to have an ideal society, because these gods that were created by men are used to manipulate millions of people. And that is one of the reasons we can't have an ideal society, because whatever these people who claim to be God's servant, who claim to know this God that does not exist, whatever they tell you, you believe it. Like you look at what is happening, with Islam, with the Muslims, where a lot of people are, unalived or murdered in the name of their God and all that. They fight for their God and all that, but this God is not seen anywhere. Nobody sees this God. Nobody knows what this God is saying. They alone claim to know what this God is saying. You see that? They alone claim to know what this God is saying. And they control a lot of people. They tell them this is what to do and what not to do. But when we get to a point where everybody understands and knows what he or she ought to do, not because they believe in one God somewhere that is giving them one instruction, they believe one God is saying something. I see that. So one man is controlling millions of people or thousands of people. He tells them what he wants them to do and claims it's a God that is telling them what he wants them to do. You see that? So that is why one of the reasons why religion is a huge problem that we need to tackle, that we need to solve. And in solving it, we need to let people understand that there is no God anywhere that anybody is serving. All right? Whoever tells you there's a God that he's hearing from, that is telling him things and all that, that person is deceiving you. That person is using your brain for you. That person is using your mental abilities for you. The ability to think is using it for you. By the time you begin to think for yourself, you know that you can take good decisions or do the right things according to the understanding of good and bad that that the secular society has come to understand and come to accept and all that, and these are subject to modifications. But the truth is, religion makes it difficult for moral laws or moral whatever to be adjusted or to be modified. You see that? So religion makes people to be static. They have static moral laws that they tell you, especially in Islam, you cannot modify this. This is what it is. So societies cannot really progress morally based on such conventions or understanding or moral laws and all that. So we have to understand that there is no God anywhere. But if at all there is any God anywhere, it cannot be the idols that people worship as God, which is Yahweh, Jesus, Allah, any of these gods. They are all idols that were formulated by man like you, a man like you and myself. All right, that have been used to control majority of people. And all these gods, they came about because of land grabbing, resources, lands and all that people as human beings started expanding and moving from one place to the other. The need for lands where there's water, maybe rivers and all, they want to grab it. They say our God gave it to us. They will go to battle and fight, and when they win the battle, they ascribe it to their God. When they lose the battle, they say, oh, because they did something wrong, that's why their God, because the ego of man is also a reason why religion got to this extent and all that. They attribute their victories or their losses to a god somewhere and all that, and not as a function of their own personal responsibility. So gods, all these gods and all that, makes people not to take responsibility for what they're supposed to take responsibility for. They try to absorb themselves of responsibility, and it's one of the reasons why the world is in chaos the way it is. So it is important that we begin to study, we begin to understand these things, that these holy books that were written by men like you and me, who had assumptions, who assumed based on their experiences, the same experiences you and I have. They created assumptions out of these experiences, and conventions and rules and laws and all that. And they've used all this to control gullible people. And those who inherited the systems that were built into these assumptions have continued to use it to make money, to control people. And politicians understand these things and they use them very well to control a lot of people. You see that? So it is time that we wake up, especially Africans. We wake up. Right now, Islam is trying hard to penetrate Europe. It is time Europeans wake up to understand that something is wrong with us if we continue to believe in these gods, if we continue to allow these beliefs dictate what happens in our society. It is very, very important. All right. So, thank you guys for watching. You can support us by sending us super thanks, super chats, super stickers, and all that to support what we're doing to support this channel. If you want to appear live on this channel in our next episode, you can drop a message for me, and I'm going to invite you to the live session when we come live again. Thank you for watching. See you in the next live session.